Hey everybody, it is your professor, your coding friend, and your head chef. And today we're going to be talking about HTML document standards and semantics. So first thing you need to do, go to the homework assignment for video 5, which is this. And we're going to click on this link, which is going to take us to Glitch. Make sure you're logged in, remix it, and then change up your project details so that you can name it to, wait, video 5, right? Is it video 5? Yes. Okay. Okay. So now that we've got that going, we're going to talk about the basic components that you need for an HTML document. So when you first make an HTML document, you need to make sure that you call it index.html. The index.html is going to let the computer know when it pulls up your website that this is the home page. This is the first page it should pull up and go through. The .html lets it know what type of document it is. That is an HTML document. But we have a couple of redundancies. At the top of our code here, you'll see that we're declaring this document type an HTML document, and we're also providing an opening tag for where the HTML code starts. So this is an opening tag. It has a corresponding closing tag at the end, and everything between it, the computer now knows is in the HTML language. So it knows what it means by caret. It means it in the way that HTML uses it, which is to start a tag. The next thing you need, you can see here we have an attribute inside of this HTML opening tag. It says lang equal en. This is declaring the language that the website is in. So en is the two-letter abbreviation for English, but if you have a different language, you can put that in there. Every language that is on the internet has a two-letter abbreviation that you can put in here. It is required that you tell the computer what kind of language you will be using in this website. The next thing you're going to have in your document is the head. So the head provides all of the metadata. So this is SEO information, search engine optimization. This is stuff to help post on social media. This is things that help the computer display your website. So like linking the style sheet so that we can change the style of our site. Again, HTML is just the bones. CSS is the style. JavaScript, you can import your JavaScripts here. Here we also have our title and description for our website. You must have a title, that is required. This is the thing that's going to go in the tab. So up here we can see it says index.html. Let me close this. That is declared inside of the head for this website. The description is what's going to show up when someone Googles your website. It'll say the name of the website, and then this description will pop up underneath it. Up here we have the favicon. So this little icon here of these two fish, that's where this is declared inside of the HTML document. Here we declare the scale that the website should be viewed in. You can just copy and paste this into all of your code. You don't need to change it. There's very few times where you'll need to change this, but if you don't have it, you can get some glitches in how your website is rendered, so you have to have that in there. The char set lets you know, the computer know what glyphs to pull up. So the HEAD, carets, all that stuff, that is UTF-8. Again, you can just copy and paste it in there. If you're using a different language that doesn't use the same characters, you'll have to pull up a different char set. There are some more of these bad boys here. I'll show them. So you'll see these sometimes on websites. This is all of the social media SEO stuff. So when you have your website posted on Twitter, usually you'll, when they post the link, there'll be some sort of preview right below it. They'll have the title of the website, some description, and then a little image preview. And those are all set up in the head so that when it shows up on Twitter or it shows up on Instagram, there's a different format or a different type of description for each of those. You can also pull in down here, and I'll tell you how to do this later, pull in custom fonts from other websites like Google Fonts or Adobe Fonts. Oh, yes, this is the social media stuff. Okay, so we're going to go back into our code and we're going to change some stuff up. So inside of our head, we're going to change the title for our page. We're going to add an accurate description, and we're going to add in a favicon. So over here, you can see my title is right here. I'm going to change this to Kelly's website. You can do whatever you want as long as it's not what was there originally. And then here's the description. A website for video 5. Cool. And to see that difference, I can go over here and click these 3 dots and say open in a new window. And now up at the top of that tab, it says Kaylee's website. So it worked. We're also going to add in the favicon. Right now I have this icon, so it's link relationship icon, and then a link address, href, and then I have this pound here. Pound can be used as a placeholder so you don't get an error. So you can put that in if you don't have your link yet. And then I'm going to go over to assets. I've already given you this image. It looks really pixelated, but that's just because these icons are super small. You only need them as big as you need them. I'm going to come back into my index, delete this, hit paste. Nice. Okay. And then I can go back to my website and refresh. And you can see that little world globe thing there is now replaced with my little icon. Cool. Okay, the next thing is going to be your body. So your body holds all of the visible elements. The head is all the metadata to help your website work. The body is all of the visual elements, the structure of your website. You can only have one body, like most people and also websites. You have one head, one body. You can't have multiple bodies. An important part of your document is the negative space that you employ. So while negative space in an HTML document will not reflect how your website looks, it will reflect how your code looks. So if you're working with a team or if you're working on the same document for a long period of time, it's important for you to keep consistent use of negative space so that your code is easy to read, because otherwise you're going to drive yourself and everyone who works with you crazy. So the standards for negative space are each element needs its own line, at least. So you can't have your H1 and then your H2 and then your paragraph all on a single line. You have to bring those down to the next line. The other thing is that when something's a child of something else, when you have an element nested inside of another element, you tab it in. And then if you have a child of that element, you tab it in. So it's really easy for you to see which things are nested inside of other things. What is the hierarchy of everything in your document? So here's an example of bad negative space. We have our H1 on the same line as our opening tag for our body. Our paragraph is on the same line as the closing tag. Nah, you put the H1 on the next line, you indent it. The paragraph is going to be on the same indentation, and then you have the closing tag. So you can really easily see that these things are inside of the body. All right, so we're going to fix our code that we have because it is terrible. And I'm going to close this just so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, maybe can I zoom in? Yeah. All right, so let's see here. I want to make sure that everything is on its own line. That's fine. This needs its own line. That's fine. This needs its own line. Okay, that looks good so far. I'm sure there's a couple I didn't catch, but we'll work on them when we get to them. Okay. And then, so we have this and this. These are on the same level, so they can just stay the same. But then my head is inside of the HTML. So everything between here and the closing tag for head needs to be, or also the body, need to be indented. So everything between these two tags, between the opening HTML and the closing HTML, need to be indented. This is super fast inside of Glitch. Just highlight everything and hit tab. If you're working in a Word document, that will delete everything in tab, but inside of Glitch, it knows that tabbing is important. So you can just highlight the things you need to tab, and it will add a tab to the beginning of every line that you have highlighted. It's very fast. Okay, so head has an opening tag, and you can see it's highlighted the closing tag here. So everything between it has to be indented. So I'm going to highlight all this, indent, and then is there anything nested in here? No, that looks okay. All right. So then same thing with the body. The body has an opening tag and a closing tag down here. So everything between that has to be indented. Okay. And here I have a div. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But that has an opening tag and a closing tag here. Ooh. And this needs its own line. There we go. All right. So everything between here and its closing tag here needs to be indented. So I'm going to highlight all this stuff. Indent. This image tag, this div, okay? There's stuff inside of it, so I'm gonna highlight it, hit tab, and that looks good. I have an opening tag here and a closing down here. Everything needs to be indented. There's an opening tag here with a closing here, so this needs to be indented. So does this. So does this. Okay, I think we've done it. Look how much easier it is to read all this stuff than it was before. All right. Comments are really important because they allow you to leave notes to yourself and to your team so that if something in your code maybe isn't obvious at first blush, someone can read that comment and go, oh, okay, that's what this is for. You declare a comment with the caret, exclamation point, dash, dash, and you end it with dash, dash, end caret. And then everything between that, the computer is going to ignore. So usually if you have something typed out, it's going to assume that that is some sort of command or something important. If you put it between here, it will just jump past it. So in here, you can put a comment above a section of code to describe what that code is being used for. Or if you're having an issue, you can add a comment that's like, somewhere below here, something isn't working or something, so everything below here needs to be updated. You can leave code comments like that. It's really nice so you can explain the code to your team or to you in the future if you don't think you'll remember why that code's there, you can add that comment in. You can also use it to troubleshoot. So if you can't find where an error is coming from, you can comment out one line or multiple lines of code, and then if the problem goes away, you know that the problem is somewhere in there, and you can just keep commenting out smaller and smaller bits until you narrow in on the line where that problem is coming from. So let's add in some comments. We're going to add, this is the start of the content, this is the title of the article, and this is a paragraph, just to get us some practice. So the content starts in the body. So right here, I can add dash dash, and then you can see when I don't add the closing tag, it comments everything out, dash dash caret, and then I can say, this is the start of the content, and then I can come down here, and I can say, this is the title, and then here, I can say, this is the paragraph. Beautiful. And I think that's everything I wanted. Yeah. Okay. So that's comments. Comments are a nice way to problem solve. Another way to problem solve is to look it up on the internet. So there's some place that I like to go. Everyone uses Mozilla Developer Network. So it's a repository of everything you could ever want to know about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So it has all the documentation for everything. If you want to know everything about the body tag, you can look it up on HDN, and it will tell you everything about the body tag. I'm going to go over, boop. You can search for stuff here. You can see off to the left side. My dog just opened the door. Hi, Leica. Hey. Okay. Off to the left side, it has all the different sections of the article. It'll give you a definition of the element that you Googled it. It'll give you a little place where you can try it out with some starter code. It'll let you know all of the different attributes you can put in the opening tag. So like we have source and href and alt and width and height. It'll show you all the things that you can put in the opening tag that are viable for that tag. It'll provide you with an example of that code in use. It'll show you the different ways that you can style it and any accessibility concerns. So certain language inside of HTML doesn't work super great for different types of computers or different types of text-to-speech translators or screen readers. And so it'll let you know if there's any accessibility concerns that you should think about. It'll also let you know the compatibility of different browsers. So not all browsers can use every HTML or CSS element. Here you can see, because I looked up the paragraph element, it works on literally everything. But if you've ever been on a website that's like, if you're on Chrome, try opening it in Safari, it's because they did a bad job with compatibility. So when you get a bug and you're not sure where it's coming from, 99% of your problems are going to come from either a syntax error or a logic error. So a syntax error is like you misspelled something, you left something off, the caret is missing, you put fronts instead of fonts. So that's going to be most of your errors. Sometimes it's a logic error, you accidentally put something in the wrong place, and that's the other part of it. So how do you figure out a glitch? I've talked about commenting, I've talked about looking it up on the MDN, but you can also, in glitch, go off to the left side, there'll be a red dot, and you can hover over it, and it will give you a description of what it thinks the problem is. Sometimes that red dot will end up on the line below or the line above, because maybe you didn't close out a tag, and so it thinks the problem's on the next line. That's actually one above. Sometimes it'll try to describe it, but it can't quite get it right. It's guessing at what the problem is, so you have to sort of do some sleuthing. Sometimes it'll actually get it right. Another thing you can do is you can use the inspector, so you can see how your browser is interpreting the code. So we've talked about this in class. If you hit Command-Shift-C on your keyboard or F12, you can pull up that inspector to see the code, and you can see if any errors are showing up when you pull that up. So here's what it looks like. We've done this in class. So I've pulled up the F12, the inspector, and then on the right side you can see all of the code, and you can see how it's being interpreted on the other side. You can also use debugging services. So W3C is a popular resource for coding on the web, and you can run your file or a snippet of code through it, and it will let you know if there are any warnings or errors. They also have accessibility checkers on there, so it can tell you, hey, sure, I got an error that there wasn't an ending tag, but also your contrast isn't high enough, that sort of thing. Okay, speaking of accessibility, it's important to use semantic language in HTML. We've been using it a little bit. So when we used EM, strong, B, I, that was semantic language. It's language that describes what the use is of that thing. There are tags that are generic, so you can use them, they will function, but they don't describe what the content is. And so that is what a div is. You've maybe seen the code div a few times because I accidentally left it in some of my code. But div is a generic way of wrapping something. So it'll still work, it's still a tag. The code will, or the computer will still process it in the way that you would expect, but it doesn't actually describe what is between those tags. It's generic. So it helps with stylization, it helps with organizing, but if you can be specific on the use case of what that thing is, you should use that instead. Because when someone is using a screen reader, it's going to describe what that thing is and its use case. And if you have it inside of something generic, the person who is accessing your website from a screen reader isn't going to really get the full context of what you're trying to do, or the computer isn't going to understand how it's supposed to translate it. So the point of a semantic element is that it is specific, it is descriptive, and it helps with organization. So here are some examples. So when you're working inside of the body, this is going to get wild. Like, I hate that they did this. So you have your head, yeah, it's where all the meta content is. You have the body, yeah, which is where all of your visual content is. Inside of the body, you have the header, ER, header, and that is the top of your website. So things like the nav, the logo, toolbar, whatever. The thing that is at the top, that is your header. So you put all of those things that are repeated across multiple pages on your website, like every time you go to a new page, that nav bar is the same at the top. You're going to put that stuff inside of your header. So this is what it looks like. It says header, and then it has the closing tag. This should be a caret here. And then you have all of your repeated elements that are at the top of your website inside of the header. You also have, you can put your nav inside of the header, and you need to change this because this is actually updated recently. So inside of your nav, or inside of your header, you can put your nav, and so that is a semantic element saying that this is the navigation. And so someone using a screen reader will know, oh, these are the links that will take me to other pages because this is the navigation. And you should just use a link and an address to the other page. I had it inside of a list. We don't do that anymore because apparently when it's used on screen readers, it's super annoying for it to read out all of the stuff as a list. It's easier as a link. All right, so we're going to go in and we're going to change out our divs, our generic elements, and change them into specific elements. So here we go. So this one, div class main. Oh, actually, let's start with the header. So you can see here, this is the body. And then at the top of my body, I have the header, and I'm just going to replace this div with an opening header tag. And then I can see here is where the closing tag was. It gave me a little error because I've changed it. So I'm just going to end it with header. And so there we go. We have a header. And inside of that, I have an icon. I can show you. Can I show you? Oh, I'm zoomed in still. All right. Oh, no, it's down here. So I have this little logo, and I have these 3 links to these other pages. So here's the logo. These are the links. They're inside of the nav. So I have a div right now, which is generic, but I can change this to nav, NAV, and then close it here in AV. Excellent. All right, our next one is main. So the header has all of the top content. The main is where all of your main content is, the thing that is unique for this page. So this might be an article or a welcome screen or what have you. So I'm going to change this to main. And then there's a closing tag down here. Here we are. / main. Okay. So my next one that is generic is here. Is figure. So the figure caption is used to put around an image. So it lets the computer know that below here is an image being used on the website, and that's so that you can also group together a caption. So if you need an image and you need a caption, it's really great to use the class figure. And a caption is like if you have an image that you need to give credit for, like at the bottom you want to, on your news website, you want to say photo by so-and-so, you can put a figure tag, your image, and then a fig caption, and it will group those 2 elements together so that when someone is using a screen reader, they know that this is a subtitle or related to that image above. It's also really useful for styling. So I'm going to get rid of this div. I'm going to replace it with figure because that is the semantic element. And then this is where it closes. Figure. Okay, and so you can see over here that I have this image and this caption for this image. And that is what the figure is holding. So this is the image, this is the caption, and so I have another tag for fig caption, and I'm just going to replace this generic element with fig caption. It's probably one of the longer tag names. Okay. There we go. So that's figure and fig caption. Okay, and the last one I want to talk about is footer. So the footer is all of your bottom of the page content. So usually that involves like an address, contact information, social media links, maybe a sitemap is all down there at the bottom, like all the extra bulky information that is lowest on the hierarchy, but you still want to have there for navigation purposes. So here, that is called the footer. It's at the very bottom. And I'm just going to change this to footer and this to footer. There we go. So it's got opening and closing tag. And here I just have a copyright thing. All right. Let's see if I miss anything. Yep. Okay. Some other tags that might be useful. So section. If you have a website that has different sections, like maybe you have a pants section and a shoes section and a ties section, you can divide those up by section. And that way, when someone is going through your website using a screen reader, they can get a list of all of the sections, and then they can jump to that section so the screen reader doesn't have to read literally everything on the page to get to the contact information they need. You can just label section, and then inside you can have your contact info. And then you'll be able to get to that section faster. Article is another helpful one. So if you have a blog, you can have like all of your other stuff going on, and then you can have the tag where the article actually starts so that someone can skip maybe the accoutrement and get straight to the article. Figure, I already talked about. Fig caption, I already talked about, or did that. Okay. So this was a big one, but they're all important. So we talked about document standards, the sort of tags that are required to have in your document, you have to have them, and then other ones that you may see and why they are there and why they are helpful. We talked about the head and the body, the meta content and the actual content, the importance of negative space when it comes to reading code, how you can debug code. I talked about the MDN and W3C. I sort of showed screenshots for them, but I will have links to those if you want to explore them inside of the lecture material for today on Canvas. So you can flip through those, see how they work. They'll be super helpful as you're working. And I'll provide links going forward to the documentation for the additional stuff that I'm talking about inside of the Canvas course content as I put up new lectures. And then we talked about semantic elements. Semantic elements are important so much they're probably, they're required at this point. They're required for accessibility reasons and to allow the computer to know what the different content is. So you should be replacing your generic elements with specific descriptive elements as often as you can. So next class, we're going to go over standards and semantics, and I will see you then.